Hello and welcome to the fourth of a series on how to reload your new and fired brass. We're moving pretty good here. This video is going to go over the next 3 steps to do with your fired brass. First, we will trim the brass cases, then we will prime the cases, and finally, we'll lube the necks with Neo Lube number 2. I will show you the methods and the tools that I use, plus explain how to use the tools. If you found this helpful, please click the like and subscribe buttons below. If you want to become a member, get some merch, download files, or help me to help you, click the memberships buy link below the video. Thank you for watching and hope to see you all subscribe and follow along in this learning experience. Alright, let's go. Alright, let's move into the trimming. So the equipment I'll be using is this is my Henderson trimmer. Now, of course, on my playlist, equipment to use, there's all kinds of information about this trimmer. I just love it. I was thinking about getting a Gerard, and then I looked at some information and decided on this, and I'm really glad I did. It's very easy, very simple. So that's one piece. And of course, the other thing we're going to use is our Mitutoyo calipers to make sure we're at the right trim length. These are zeroed out. Now, before we start trimming, let me tell you something. I do not trim my brass till like after the second, maybe third firings. I monitor how much they're growing because I never want to trim them too short. So after the second or third firings, after they're sized, not before they're sized, wait till they're sized, because that's going to be your finished brass size, your case size, when you shoot. So measure them then. And you're going to have to then just trim to the shortest one. So I know where I want to be here, and it's going to be 1.556 inches. I have it written up here. I got to write things down or I'll forget them. So this brass should pretty much be there right now. See, this one is 155.65. I'm sorry, 1.5565. So that's pretty much there. But there could be differences in there, so I still trim them. I trim every time because you know my slogan, get everything as close to possible as the same measurement. So this is very simple to use. It's got a DC motor. It's got a Wilson type triple cutter head. Okay, it cuts your brass. It chamfers the inside and the outside all at one time. There's an adjustment nut in here where you set it and forget it because this is a dead stop. It hammers up against that adjustment knob. So it's going to be the same every time. Then there's a little shield here for your shavings. And I think we're ready to go. So there's a collet in this handle. You put your brass in and you twist the collet and it holds it. Okay? Now what I do is I like spin it a little bit as I'm putting it in to make sure it's flat. And then when I get in there, I twist it a little harder. You'll see how I do this, and then when you pull back, you loosen it and it drops right into this bin. So let's get her fired up and let's get her going. Little spin, make sure it's straight, twist it, and that's it. Now I can hardly see anything coming off. I don't know how close this is going to focus, but you see there's a really nice chamfer on the inside and the outside. It does a perfect job. So if we measure this now, all right, it is 15560, exactly where I want it. Release. Twist it in, put it in, tighten it, release. Now don't push real hard, because them blades, when they first hit your neck, if you're pushing real hard, you know, like give it a little gouge, whatever, you know. This thing stays within plus or minus a half a thousandth of an inch. It's very, very good, very repeatable. See, now there's that 1.5555. So that's like a half a 10,000th of an inch off. That means nothing. So you just keep going. Now I did want to show you, I got a little backed up on that. I do let them drop into the bin. But when I get 10 or 15 of them in there or so, then I do take them out and I empty them into another container carefully. I don't want, I know this may not be needed, but I don't want a bunch of them dropping on top of each other's necks, just in case. Okay, so now I'm going to continue. And then we will move on to the next step, which I'll show you, which is a real quick thing. Now this next step that I do, you guys are going to be probably like, yeah, he's anal, all right. Well, I'm going to tell you why. I got a little pancake air compressor underneath my bench, and I got this hose. Two at a time, I just blow them out. It's no big deal. It's a little time consuming, yeah. It might cost me 5 minutes of my life, but I'm not like everybody else. The reason I do this is because we were creating brass shavings. Some of them could have got down inside the cases. I do not want nothing inside of my cases contaminating my powder load. Now, there is proof to that can do something. You can also send a nice hot piece of brass down your barrel that'll fuse to your barrel or something, and you'll have a hard time cleaning it up. This takes 5 minutes. There's nothing to it. So if you want to call me Anal Dean, go right on ahead. Alrighty, now moving on. Now we're going to get to priming. So let me show you a couple of the tools I use here. And this here, my primer takes primer tubes, okay? Remember the old days of sticking them down in there one by one by one? Well, this here is the Double Alpha Academy. Now, I've already got my 92 primers in there. I'm down to 92 because I screwed up a shell. Now, there are two ports. There's one for small primers and there's one for large primers. And this is a little magnet type of thing. You can take out and switch it over here for when you're doing large primers. Very cool. Let me get that primer out of there. Okay. So you just like any primer tray, you shake them around, try to get them all to turn over, and I don't believe in my entire life have I ever had them all turn over. So I get the old tweezers and flip them over. Okay, once they're over, you put the top on, obviously, and make sure it's down on there. Then your primer tube, make sure you got your pin in the bottom of the primer tube. Otherwise, while you're doing this, they're all going to just dump out. So you take your primer tube and you insert it up into the bottom. There's a push button on the back here. This works on a vibrating action. Make sure you don't go too fast. I hope you can see them dropping in there. And bada bing, that's that. Then there's this little lever here. You push up on it and pull your tube out. Then you take your tube, and I can't show you this now, but I'll show you on the next scene. And you take it over and you put it into your primer. We're going to get into priming here now, but I want to show you. This is my Primal Rights CPS primer tool, okay? Now, I have videos on this, and I also have videos that you should watch. It's about case rim thickness. Now, I don't care what kind of priming tool you have, you will never get the same primer seating depth because of case rim thickness. I can demonstrate that a little bit here, but they all have shell holders, okay? And see how that shell goes up and down? When the primer is pushing up, it's pushing that up, okay? But the thing is, this case rim thickness here on your case is different. They're not all the same. They can be up to 2 thousandths. I've seen even a little more than that. So if I seated a primer here, say I'm going for 4 thousandths seating depth. If I seat a primer with any kind of primer, even this one, this is the best one on the market, but it still needs help. I can prime 4 cases and there'll be different primer seating depth. I have videos on that. See the videos about my CPS primer and equipment I use and stuff like that. So what I invented here, what I created, you see these threaded rods here and this bracket that goes across and this knob and all that? Well, whatever your diameter is, your inner diameter of your case, you find a pin gauge that's 1/1000 smaller and you slip it in there, okay? Then you put it in here, you push down on the bar, and you spin this knob. Now this case cannot lift up. I am getting within plus or minus 2 or 3 10,000ths of an inch in priming because of this thing I created. Next to another piece of equipment that I use that I have to have. It's the only way to tell what your primer seating depth is. There are other gauges out there. I used to use this 2-piece one and all that, and I found out it wasn't worth my time. So this is, what I'm doing now is I'm just cleaning off the top of this, and then you get the proper thing for your case size and put it on there. This is the Primal Rights Primeware gauge. Now, it's on Bluetooth to an app. You see this app over here. This says the same thing as this. So what I'm going to do now is zero it out. Make sure you have something that's straight and solid. I'm using a Mitutoyo gauge black. So I'm going to set it on there. Okay, we are still zeroed out, so we're good. Otherwise, I would hit this green 0 button on there. Now, this assembly I was telling you about, my bracket that I made, this is going to be for sale pretty soon. I'm going to start selling this. This model I made, I drilled and tapped into my inline fabrications plate that is made for this CPS primer. So the way it sits now is you would have to have this inline fabrication and use their stuff to mount it on. But I just, came out with something with some help of my friend where I redesigned this so you don't have to use inline fabrication. You can use it on a bench, you can use it on whatever you have it mounted on. It's universal and it'll work the same way. So let's start priming. Now this primer works by pulling this handle back. I'll show you, but first I'm going to put a shell in there. Simply slide it in, push down, and tighten that knob. Then to load it, you pull back on this, and it loads a primer in from this red primer tube that we loaded before. Then I just take it, and I pull down. Except for some reason. Oh, I'll tell you why. I didn't pull the pin on the primer tube. That's why we had no primer in there. And again, I'm not going to take that mistake out because I want to show you everybody makes mistakes. So now we'll load a primer in. I grab the handle and I just pull it down. Okay? Then you spin this back and pull it out. Now we will measure the depth of this. 45. That's what I call it. 45. Now I'm going to get a piece of paper and I write down on this piece of paper with the first one 45 because I'll keep track of what the deepest and the shortest seating depth is. Load another primer and seat it. Now that one is 40. Okay, so you see that's a difference of 5/10,000ths of an inch. So now I'll write down 40. 40 is my shortest and 45 is my longest. I can put that in there and bump it in a little bit. 40. So we're within our range now. We're talking 10,000. Did I load a primer? Yeah. Okay, 44. So we're still within our range. And I can go a lot faster if I had this iPhone out of my way, but I want you to be able to see it. Okay. One more, and then I'll show you this. $41, still within range. Okay, so what we had there was 38 to 45. So that is 7 thousandths of an inch, which means plus or minus, not 7 thousandths, I'm sorry, 7 10,000ths of an inch. So that means we're plus or minus like 3.5 10,000ths of an inch. I usually get better than this, but I'm having a hard time because you do have to get your handle pull right. Like anything else, you'll get used to it. But if you want, you know, accurate primer seating, which is very important, this is the way to go. Moving on now. We're going to go to lubing the necks with Neo Lube. You'll notice I have these old boxes, brass boxes, Lapua brass boxes. And you see these rings in here. This is something I didn't know. But on these boxes, on the top, there is this. And you can just set it down in there. So the reason I made these, and plus I cut up little pieces of this microfiber towel and put it in the bottom, for when you're lubing your necks, that lube will definitely run down and get into your primer. Now so that's the reason that is, because if you lube your necks and you just set them down upright, that's going to run down into your primer. So to get rid of that, I lube them and I put them in here upside down. And it's that simple. So next, we've got our Neo Lube number 2. Make sure this is shook up real good, because the stuff will settle on the bottom. Whatever's in there, I'm not a scientist, I just know it works. And then I've got these foam Q-tips. All this stuff is, of course, on the equipment I use. So what I do is get this open, and you got to be careful to try not to knock this over. I'm going to make a little wooden block, I think, with a hole in it that's the size of this jar to put it in so I don't accidentally knock it down. But there's a brush on the end of this cap, and you want to soak this. Give it a good soaking first. And then you just put it in your neck and run it around. Now, I'm not sure I can show you this, but it's black now. But if you blow on it, it turns to like a charcoal gray when it dries. And then just put it in your case upside down. You can do about 4 or 5 necks. You know, with one soaking of this, you'll be fine. But it's pretty simple. Pretty simple. So then after I've done the first soaking, I take the cap out. And I'll just dip it in there and run it down the sides a little bit to get the excess. and start rolling. Now you'll get some on the outside, whatever. It doesn't matter. As we say in the trades, we're not building a church here. I know you would think, as anal as I am, how could I say that? But, so I'll just dip it every once in a while, wipe off the excess. Round and round we go. Where she stops, nobody knows. And that's it. Very, very, very simple. Okay. We will now move on to our... No, let's not move on yet. Let me tell you something else. So I would give them a good 15 minutes to dry, just to be safe.